Oi mates, what's up? I know that you know what money is. That cool centralized thing we all have that has a fixed value and you can use to trade for other things like food or rubber gloves, for example. But did you know that money varies greatly from country to country? Take the US dollar for example, specifically the $1 note, because that's the most detailed one. Pretty neat if you ask me. Every bill has an old president or founding father on its front. You know, like George Washington or Thomas Jefferson. And there's the note's code and some other important stuff on there. Pretty cool. In the back, however, they really went out of their way to design something cool. The backside's display centers around the Great Seal of the United States. The two large circular elements on the back of the bill are the two faces of the Great Seal adopted by the Continental Congress in 1782. On the right side of the bill, the seal features the American bald eagle, the national bird and symbol of power and authority. The eagle holds a scroll in its beak, bearing the motto E pluribus unum, which is Latin for out of many, one, signifying the creation of one nation from the original 13 colonies. And it had to be in Latin because, you know, the USA is obviously Roman, duh. In its right talon, the eagle grasps an olive branch, a traditional symbol of peace which, say what you want, but is definitely not fitting to the United States anymore. In its left talon, it holds a bundle of 13 arrows, representing the power to wage war to protect the nation, or steal oil. This pairing symbolizes that the United States desires peace, but is prepared for war. Now, I'm not commenting or questioning that, but let me just say that this phrase is just pure American. The United States desires peace, but hell yeah! Anyway, above the eagle's head is a glory containing 13 stars, arranged in the shape of a larger star or a constellation, which again references the original states taking their place among sovereign nations. And the eagle's chest is protected by a shield with 13 vertical stripes, representing the union of the states under a single governing body. Jesus Christ, I understand there have been 13 colonies and they are very proud of that, but come on, man. But that's pretty much it for the right side. Think of it what you want. On the left side of the bill is the seal's reverse, dominated by the unfinished pyramid. This pyramid consists of 13 rows of stone, representing the 13 original states and signifying the strength, durability and growth of the young nation, which is still building. For fuck's sake, if I have to hear anything else about the 13 colonies, I swear to God I'm gonna explode. Above the pyramid is the Eye of Providence, which sees all. Even what you are doing right now, better get that thing out of there. It's surrounded by a triangle of light. This ancient symbol represents the divine intervention or God's watchful eyes over the affairs of the United States. Yeah, I'm not commenting on that one either. There are two mottos in Latin, which are associated with the pyramid. Above the eye, the inscription reads Annuit Coeptis, meaning He, as in God, has favored our undertakings, or He has approved our efforts. Beneath the pyramid, the banner reads Novus Ordo Seclorum, which translates to New Order of the Ages, referring to the beginning of a new American era on the date 1776, written in Roman numerals, at the base of the pyramid. Jesus Christ, for a country that isn't even Roman, they sure have a lot of Latin on there. Beyond the Great Seal, the bill contains several textual elements. The United States of America is printed in a wide arch across the top of a note, because obviously. In God We Trust is prominently displayed across the back of the note between the two seals. An addition that began appearing on US currency during the Civil War era and became mandatory in 1956. This phrase reflects the spiritual heritage and belief system acknowledged by the nation. Finally, the number 1 is repeated on all 4 corners of the note to ensure the value is instantly recognizable regardless of orientation. Together, these elements transform the back of the $1 bill from a single currency marker into a rich tapestry of American history, values, national aspiration, and the 13 colonies. Mostly the 13 colonies. Now, it's okay for me if you do not like that design. But the security features are pretty cool. Pretty similar to Europe actually. When you hold the banknote up to the light, you can see the faint portrait of the respective historical figure on the $100 bill. Also, a thin thread embedded in the paper becomes visible. On newer notes, this thread glows a specific color under UV light, and it is inscribed with text and the note's value. Now, that's already pretty secure, but the paper also contains tiny red and blue fibers that are only visible under magnification. That's already extremely secure if you ask me. Even now, there would still be more info about the bill, but I believe we know enough about it for now. The US dollar is a above average bill in terms of, well, everything. And that pretty much resembles the United States in my opinion.
Voy a la playa, ya subió la marea.
As you may know, Germany is a member of the European Union and proud user of the euro. And the euro is a prime example of German efficiency. It's about as valuable as the US dollar, but it's much cooler in terms of safety and design. Now, there are 2 designs, one from 2002 made by an Austrian, and one from 2013 made by a guy from Berlin. So it doesn't get much more German than that. The old one does look pretty boring in my opinion. The new one, however...
Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
The different values have different colors. Also, there's no €1 bill, which is just...
Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
The smallest one in terms of value is the €5 bill. This one is the smallest by size. Oh yeah, the euro bills have different sizes. The more value, the bigger. But the difference is really not that bad. Like, I didn't realize myself until I saw that fact while doing research for this video. Where was I? Oh yeah. The €5 bill is greenish and white. The €10 bill is red and white. The €20 bill is blue and white. See a pattern yet? The €50 bill is this beautiful orange and white. The €100 bill is this big, beautiful green and white. Second to last, the €200 bill. That one is this beautiful yellow and white, of course, but this one is extremely rare. Like, I have ever only seen this one online. I did try to get it for this video, but the bank only gave me 2 $100 bills instead. 8 times. And for the grand finale, the €500 bill, which is that pretty purple and white color. I like those designs. By the way, if you have noticed the €500 bill's design, you will quickly realize that it looks quite different from all the others. That is because the design was never updated and most of the production ended in 2019. Now I bet you wonder, Amestria, Why is the euro a great example for German efficiency? Well, my dear viewer, that is because the euro is perfect. It is not possible to print fake ones due to multiple reasons. First are watermarks of Goddess Europa. Yes, that's her real name on the left side. Also, there's a security thread embedded into the bill that you can only see in light. The little bubbles you're seeing here are not purely by design, but instead they are an algorithmic code that makes printers not want to copy them. Try it out if you don't believe me. That's really true. The number, in this case the 50, is printed onto the bill in a way that makes you feel it when you touch it. There's a small portrait window in both the bottom right and the bottom left. This thing is transparent and changes its looks dependent on the way you're holding the bill. This thing is made with lasers and is extremely pretty if you ask me. Especially when you hold it into light. In some places there's even an extremely small microprint. Most of the time it's just the name of the European Central Bank written all over again, but it's pretty hard to fake. And that has only been the stuff you can see with your eye. Also, there are many fibers all over the damn thing that each glow in 3 different lights. If you use infrared light, you can only see the right third of the bill, while using ultraviolet light, you can see the stars of the EU. Depending on the kind of the UV light you are using, the stars even have different colors. And that's not even all security measurements. You see what I mean yet? Anyway, the design choices on the euro are just on point as well. Because think about it. This grand centralized European currency can't just have historical figures on it. That would really piss off the other nations. No, instead the euro does this. The bills follow the so-called ages and styles pattern. That basically means that every bill has a different structure on it, and all of these structures each symbolize an historical era. It starts with the 5 euros classical designs and it goes all the way up to 19th century iron and glass architecture. And that's fitting, because every state has gotten through those eras. On the back there are a bunch of bridges. Those bridges have a funny story, by the way, because they're not real. Well, some are, but they were built afterwards. The bridges are meant to symbolize the unity and connection in the European Union. And of course, the more valuable the bill is, the more modern the bridge on it is. But there are more designs on the euro. A map of Europe, for example, because obviously. Also, I said it before, but the coloring just looks so nice. Instead of, let's say, the US dollar, where there's a ginormous text on it explaining the origin of the bill, the euro just has an EU flag on it. Well, on the bottom there is euro, written in Latin, Greek and Cyrillic, but that really doesn't compare in my opinion. So, now that you know what purpose everything has, would you agree that this is peak German engineering? Hopefully. But now finally, the cool part. The euro coins. Remember the values that the euro is trying to show? Like no national figures and only unifying symbols? Well, those values. Every member state can make its own coins and put whatever they want on it. And believe me, those coins are epic. There are 2 sides, the European side and the national side. On the European side, everything is the same. There can only be the value of the coin and the European map. But on the back side, however, there are no limitations. Let's look at Germany, for example. The Germans have put a ton of stuff on there. You may have seen the 2 most common symbols, the German eagle and the Brandenburg Gate. But they, like all other states, have done so much more. That includes, but is by far not limited to, artwork that celebrates unification, a collection of every German state, a coin for Charlemagne, Yes, he's called Karl der Große in Germany. One for Helmut Schmidt, and so much more. And that's just a 2 euro coin. On the 50 cents coin, for example, Croatia put Nikola Tesla on there. The Dutch have put their queen on there, as always, and the French have put their girl on there. I have no idea who that is, but it sure looks cool. Speaking about France, there are Tree of Union on the 2 euro coin. Well, normally I'm not a big fan of France, but come on, you gotta admit this is cool. Estonia put their country as a design on there. Greece put their flag nicely decorated on there, and the Italians put Dante Alighieri on there. So you can see that there is an endless potential for the coins. By the way, every coin, meaning the 2 euro, 1 euro, 50 cents, 20 cents, 10 cents, 5 cents, 2 cents and 1 cent coin, all have cool designs that are unique from each other. And that's just so fucking cool in my opinion. But what do you think? Feel free to tell me your opinion in the comments. Also, if you liked the video, please subscribe. It would really mean a lot to me. Have a nice day!